do quite like the aesthetic of using parts of the environment as your weapons. Do you know what I mean? The sort of makeshift aspect. I quite like, really. It all looks complete crap, but you know, it's meant to. In a nice way.
Shouldn't you be at your designated work site?
Oh, nice. Ooh, these are breakable? What? Why did no one tell me? Oh, how much stuff have I missed now? Alright, I'm targeted to his head right now, so let's smack it. Let's give it a good smacking. I really don't like Q being the button to block. How am I supposed to press that and move around at the same time? Did I? Oh, bloody hell, he's... Wow. It's lit. So this is The Surge, and the devs have actually kindly offered to sponsor this video. This is the first time that's ever happened, so it's been interesting to find out how these type of things work. And of course I'm very grateful to them for keeping me off the streets until I graduate, at least for a little while. Now, they didn't tell me to share anything with you in particular, just to play the game, which is fine. And the truth is, if you're involved in the Souls community to any degree, you're going to hear about this game anyway, at some point, since it comes out in about a month or so, and it does share a few similarities to the Souls games. So I thought we'd take a little look. You'll have been able to tell from the footage that you've already seen that this game is in a dystopian science fiction type of genre, and is a little bit similar to Souls, but I don't necessarily think that's too relevant a comparison actually. The aesthetic and atmosphere of the game I think is very striking. It's actually quite cool in my opinion. It is such a key part of the game design that I think that's going to be one of the key things that influences your decision on whether to get this game. Everything is falling apart. The armour and weapons you find are thrown together out of different machinery parts, bits of scrap metal, that kind of thing. And the only story we know so far, really, is that you wake up among these ruins in the industrial complex and realise something has gone wrong, to put things lightly. I mean, all your co-workers now attack you using makeshift weapons and armour that they've put together. I think they've had a very clear vision for the look and feel of this game, and if it's something you're into, that's great. Now, the weapons and armour we mentioned are tied into combat in a big way and an unusual way. You don't have traditional stats or attributes to level up. Instead, the whole focus is on your gear and implants. You can mix and match for various effects. You switch your gear around depending on the situation. That's how you progress and advance. The only leveling you do involves increasing the core power of your exoskeleton, which is the mechanical suit that we have on. Essentially, I think the point is, you aren't forced into specific builds and playstyles. You can change things up whenever you feel like it. How you acquire the gear is also pretty unique. You get new weapons when you encounter new enemies. Now what I mean by that is, if you see an enemy with a weapon that you like the look of, just chop it off. That's literally it. You can cycle through and target individual body parts to acquire the exact pieces you want. Or you can cycle through and target weaker, unprotected parts of the body if the fight's proving to be too difficult. So that's a big part of the strategy in this game. Armour, on the other hand, is slightly different. After you cut off a segment from an enemy, you get the blueprints to craft it. And then you need to repeat the process and cut off more of the same parts from different enemies to gather enough components to actually craft the armour you want. Just takes a bit more time, really. But we can see from the trailers that have been previously released that eventually we'll be able to craft some good looking suits. One thing I do hope in relation to this though is I just hope there's a lot of weapons and armour. And I really hope they feel meaningfully different as well. That was a slight problem in Lords of the Fallen. It becomes a problem, I think, when there aren't enough significantly different enemy types, and a lack of weapon variety can be really restrictive as well. But you know, this was a demo, so it only featured about 3 or so weapons, but I think we'd be right in saying that we would obviously expect there to be a lot more in the final release. And again, the good thing is these devs have made Lords of the Fallen, which, you know, some people have different opinions about. I actually thought it was alright. There was definitely some really good ideas within the game, but maybe those good ideas were far and few between. But they should have learnt a lot from any mistakes that they made in the past, and in that respect I think the combat is a lot less clunky than it was in Lords of the Fallen. Still a bit clunky, don't get me wrong, the dashes look slightly out of place sometimes, almost Bloodborne-esque, I'd say, but the combat here just did have a lot more depth, with things like ducking under enemy attacks, sliding into a charging enemy and then attacking, loads of different combos. I might not have too much footage of that, unfortunately. I just wasn't able to figure it out all myself at the time. Truthfully, I've never played on PC before, so I found the controls really awkward to get the hang of. I'm definitely going to hook up a controller next time. Should make life a lot easier. Enemies we got a chance to look at were generally human opponents, or human opponents with different weapons, different exoskeleton suits. The drones were pretty simple. I think some of them had a few sort of melee attacks, a lot of them just shot lasers at you. They did seem to have this one failsafe feature where if they took too much damage from you, they'd sort of set off like an EMP blast is what it seemed like to me. Essentially seemed like a defensive measure where it sort of drained all your stamina for a few seconds, so had to watch out for that. But this is a good chance to show you that not all the weapons had light and heavy attacks. Instead, what they have is horizontal and vertical attacks, and you need to make use of them depending on which body part you're targeting. Blocking, I barely ever used, mainly because I couldn't stretch my finger to the Q button on my keyboard because I just wasn't used to it. How it works is you're locked in place when you block and your stamina drains while you hold that position, but you block all damage as far as I can tell. If you block just before an enemy attack at the right second, you'll actually stun them and knock them down, and being in that defensive position also expands your moveset a bit. It allows you to duck and jump, which I didn't figure out until after this recording. Can't really complain about that though. I was actually very glad to find out there was more hidden depth to the combat. There was a central hub to this level, an operations center. Dying respawns you back here, where you'll have to then run back to where you died to pick up your tech scrap before a timer runs out. Now the timer is ridiculously generous, I thought, or at least it was for this level. Maybe it'll be harder in later levels where the distance you have to cover is extended. Anyway, this operations center is where you can use tech scrap to level up your core power and also refresh your health and implants. Implants are interesting. If I had to compare them, I'd say they're maybe like rings from the Souls games, although some are consumable, so there is a difference. But you equip them in slots depending on which ones you think will be useful to you. Off to the side for that stuff, there's a crafting station where you can see which blueprints you've acquired and you can craft new gear using them, and then equip what you make in the inventory. Some equipment will definitely be more useful in certain situations. I definitely got a bit of a taste of that in this demo. Some have bonuses that protect you from environmental damage, others have inbuilt lighting systems which enable you to explore darker areas, such as the one I found down here. Making a lot of noise down here, which clearly attracts attention. Now darker levels like this can be frustrating, but I don't know, I thought it was done pretty well. Imagine having PvP fights in this sort of environment. I know the game's not planned to have multiplayer, but still man, it would be so cool with exosuit lights and electric weapons battling out in these sort of dark sewers. Oh, I think it would.
Let me out! Anyone there? I want to get out!
Unfortunately, I don't think we could help our poor worker friend out here, as I was ambushed by one of Casey Neistat's drones. Don't know what he was doing, snooping around down here. You're probably starting to put together a mental image of how the level is put together, and I think the level design is undeniably a strong point from what I've played. There's verticality, multiple paths, many chances to find hidden things if you explore a little bit, and it's all interconnected, tying back into the one operational center. Powering up your exosuit gives you access to more areas as well. By overcharging systems you can trigger certain things like getting doors to open, but some require a higher power level than others. One of the positives I think you could definitely say for this demo is the level design. There's even a little bit of platforming in there. I'll talk now about a mini-boss that I discovered hidden behind some toxic gas behind these bushes. Now it's a construction machine gone rogue. It looked a bit like a bulldozer slash fiery digger hybrid, and I gotta say, it fit in really well. It made sense in its location, I thought. It felt weighty, mechanical, and it was pretty tough initially. Since everything one-shot me, I'm guessing my armour was pretty poor at this point. It could crush you with its claw, crush you with its body, spin around and give you a good slapping. There was also a drone nearby, which was very annoying. Every time you died, you had to keep remembering to take care of it. So strategy-wise, you needed to avoid the arm and slide over to the base of its body, where you could attack certain sections. Attacking it repeatedly sometimes made the legs collapse, and it sprayed out some kind of defensive ice mist that slowed you down and kind of got you stuck if you got caught in it. If you did get stuck, and it did its body slam, you'd die. So you couldn't be ultra aggressive in this fight. You had to take things slowly, figure out its moveset, weak points and attack phases, and then once you finally figured out how it all works, it's pretty simple. Overall, I think it's quite good, a pretty unique sort of opponent. There was a final level boss at the end as well. Fellow YouTuber Oddsdava found it, and I have to say, I thought the way it was introduced was actually pretty cool.
System check initiated. Error. Bypassing. Error. Bypassing. Bypass successful. Bringing primary weapon online. Primary weapon offline. Secondary systems operational. Evaluating tactical options.
Supposedly what you had to do is attack the security robot enough until it recognized you as a significant threat. Then it would fire missiles into the ground trying to hit you, and if you went underneath it, it would destroy itself. Something like that. There was some kind of twist to the fight. I had to catch my train home literally minutes before I got to that part, which is a bit annoying, but that was the final thing in this demo. Now there's a lot of important questions that I know you have, and I'll cover a few miscellaneous things now. Firstly, the options menu is quite extensive, and I could change a lot of the settings, such as reducing the frequency of slow motion executions, because you don't want them slowing down combat all the time. Another thing is, you seem to play as a specific main character called Warren. Presumably that does mean there's no character customization, so how I feel about this is unless they've justified that decision by making him a really interesting character with a fleshed out backstory, then they might as well have allowed at least some basic customization, I would argue, but that's too early to tell. We haven't seen any of the story really, so I guess we'll have to see. This game does not have multiplayer, as I have mentioned before, so that immediately raises questions about longevity, because personally I think PvP, or at least basic co-op, is actually quite important for people to want to come back and repeatedly play a game once they've finished it. So what we can hope for is a good fleshed out new game system where there'll be many incentives to replay and complete multiple playthroughs. I think an aspect that people are going to be very happy about is that this is not a Neo, this is not a PS4 exclusive. It will release on all consoles and on PC, obviously, because that's what I've been playing it on. Oh, and just to mention that in terms of appearance, I'm brand new to recording PC games. New to playing them actually, so I kept changing and experimenting with frame rates and graphic settings throughout this video, so sorry if you noticed that. If there's inconsistencies, that's why. All I can say is this demo actually ran well for me on my PC. The game comes out on May the 16th. There's a link to it right there in the description if you're interested and you want to pick up a copy for yourself when it releases. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what your initial thoughts are on this game, and I'll keep an eye on it and let you know how things develop. Cheers everyone, I'll see you in a bit.